Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, bro?
I was great up until about half an hour ago.
Half hour ago. I already know the answer, but go ahead and tell everybody else why.
And this gentleman listens to the podcast. So Mr. Steve Patterson, shout out to you, my friend.
Sounds like a very intelligent man.
Yeah, he's just taking the leap to invest in himself, which was nice. But anyway, the point being is he kept referencing you on our call. It's like, oh, listen to the podcast, and Doug. And with every and Doug, it was like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Well, Steve, if you're out there, we got Father's Day weekend coming up right now. And then obviously for most of you guys, you're going to hear this after Father's Day, which could be an important topic. But Steve, I just got a smoking grill. So why don't you come on over? We'll do some brisket, have a couple beers, and enjoy life, my friend.
Yeah. He was talking a lot about the previous episode of the story that you tell. Is that what the title was? Yeah, your story equals your identity. So, So yeah, it was great. So anyway, let's rock and roll because you've got a nice topic here that I'm curious to dive into.
All I want to talk about is my grill in my smoker. But so, guys, what I want to talk about today is owning where you are. And Tim, I know you're going to have a lot of commentary on this one. But the theory is a lot of us go around wearing a mask, and we all know that. We've talked about that in the podcast quite a bit. But it's the importance of owning where you are today, right? We're alpha males. We're moving in a direction that we want to go into, and we want to focus on where we're going. But you really need to own where you are. Own where you are in your health, right? How is your health, really, right? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting medical exams? Are you getting your bloods tested? Are you working out, exercising, eating right, etc.? How about your relationships, right? How are your friends, your intimate relationships? If you let those go by the wayside, and then other areas, self. Are you taking care of yourself? Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews, just a week or so ago, was giving me a hard time for not really treating myself. So for Father's Day, I got a Traeger grill for those guys that know what that is. So feeling very happy about that. So what are you doing
and
for
an
yourself?
Aura ring, and a cleaner, and a house manager, and a house, and
So I went off. You took your advice very seriously and took it as a license to do quite a bit.
Good for you.
Yep. And I got a trainer coming
feel?
5 days a week. Feels great, man. Feels great. This is kind of an aside, but yeah, we actually have a babysitter coming over today. My wife and I, as soon as we're done recording the podcast, we're heading out for a day date.
Wow.
Yep. But we'll save that for another topic, for another podcast episode to talk about.
Huge. Well done.
Yeah. And so, guys, back to owning where you are today is where are you in these categories, the 5 territories? So again, that's self, wealth, business, relationships, and health. Where are you? And the importance of owning this, to me, Tim, is it's really giving you clarity, right? We have optics in business, whether you're using KPIs, OKRs, or whatever you're using in your business to monitor its progress. For some of you, probably just hitting refresh in the bank account. I get that too. But where are you really today in all 5 territories? And getting that massive clarity is almost like having a starting point on your journey. If I say right now, I'm in Bend, Oregon in the States currently, but if I say I want to go to Jamaica, right? And I ask you, how do I get there? Well, you need to know, well, from Bend, it's very easy for you to map it out, planes, boat, whatever it is. But if you don't know where I'm starting at, and I ask you how to get to Jamaica, you got to know where it is. If I'm in the UK, if I'm in Cyprus, if I'm in Canada, if I'm in New York, wherever it is, the route that I'm going to take is going to be very different. And that goes for us men too.
Over to me. Yeah, I mean, it's huge, right? It's so easy to get lost and transfixed on the destination and the process without. There's 2 problems, right? Without owning where you are. One is what you mentioned there. You've got to know where you are to know where you're going. I also think without owning where you are, you missed a major gift, right? Because you're either living in the future or living in the past, right? So you're never really actually present. And without owning where you are, because you're putting so much of your potential happiness, let's say, on a future result, projecting into the future, we all know that point never arrives because it's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of being an entrepreneur, right? You love to grow, I love to evolve. So always seeking out the next challenge. So point being is, if you delay, we've spoken in the past about living for someday, and where's someday on the calendar? It isn't, is it? So if you're delaying your happiness for some time in the future, or even your significance, right? Okay, well, when I get to 1 million or 10 million or whatever, that's when I will be happy or work less or whatever. And whatever mechanics it is, working less or whatever, the only reason why you want to work less or pick the kids up from school or date your wife or whatever is to get a feeling anyway, right? So point being is, without owning where you are, not only do you miss the optics, which hold you back from where you're going, also you miss the entire point of the actual process, which is to enjoy now, here and now, today. And some guys get scared about that, right? Well, if I enjoy the moment, then I could become too comfortable and I'll lose my edge. Some guys might, but I definitely know it's not true for me or you or the guys we work with. It's quite the opposite. The happier I become, the easier it is, and the more fruitful it always is. Not only just with money, but love, joy. Well, the 5 freedoms, we talk about that as well. But that's my take for sure. I think it's important to look at both perspectives.
Yeah, and also when I think about owning where you are, the first thing that comes to mind, and anybody that's listened to this podcast on a regular basis has heard me say it, and you, is the person that we lie to the most is ourselves, right? And that's why we have all these kind of jokes about men as they get older. A man looks in the mirror and has a big old beer belly, and he sees, the buff 21-year-old that he was. And there's some reality to that, right? Men, we let ourselves go, and we're not honest with ourselves. Like, it looks pretty good. And then they just look at their arms and their chest, and they don't look below that and see the belly that's there. But same thing with our relationships, right? You don't check in with your wife or your spouse or your kids or even your friends, and you pretend that, everything's great. I haven't talked to Tim in months, but we're still great buddies. I'm just working so hard, and I have this story that comes in. But meanwhile, maybe Tim is thinking, well, I don't talk to Doug, so we're no longer friends. You just don't know, right? There's stories that we create. And I think getting massive clarity and honesty around where you really are today is critically important. And I think especially, Tim, in the area of your relationship, your intimate relationship the most, so with your wife or your spouse, and as well as your kids, like, where are you really? Are you spending enough time with your children? Do they know who you are as a father? We have Father's Day in the United States coming up here in just a few days. And for you listening to this, Father's Day just passed. If you're listening to this as it's released, how did that go? How did it really go? How did it go not only for you, but how did it go for the people closest to you? I mean, these are questions you guys want to sit down and journal, write them down. We say journal, but you could write them down anywhere and just be really honest. And so, Tim, one exercise that I do, and I invite the listeners to do as well, I call it the Oprah exercise, but it's obviously changed over the time as she's not quite the icon on public television anymore. But what you do is, what if I were to follow you around with a camera crew for 1 week? What if and I was a journalist, an investigative journalist, and I was going to write about your life, right? What would be true about it if I were to write about it in those 5 territories? What would be true about your relationships? Really true. Are you super connected with your wife, right? Do you have a lot of friends that you spend time with? Like, what are the truths to that? What about your health? What are the truths there? Am I going to see you munching down bags of chips and Doritos and not taking and fueling your body properly? Am I going to see you not sleeping well? Right? Am I going to see you not working out? Maybe you haven't worked out in months, but your story is you're still doing it. What is the truth that's there? And this is not to beat yourself up, guys. That's something I want to make really clear. The goal here is not to punish yourself, make yourself wrong, beat yourself up. The point here is to get massive clarity. And for some of you guys, it's going to be your body's going to be on point, right? That's awesome. Write that down. Write that down. You got to know where you are today. And I think, Tim, with that, we can get a starting point of where to jump off to next.
Mm. I think it's really important as well to let go of the labels. I was speaking to a guy in the Brotherhood today who struggled with depression in the past. So I've been doing some one-on-one coaching with him. And he said something. What did he say? He said something along the lines of, he painted a scenario that happened in his business with a customer, and he tolerated something. And he said, well, then I started to feel depressed, and I was like, why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel like this. That's bad. And I was like, whoa, just hold on a minute. What makes it bad? And he's like, well, I shouldn't feel this way. He started to go into a comparison of either some ideal he had in his head of who he should be or what it means to be a man or whatever. Anyway, point being is what came out of it was there's so much power in dropping the label of something being good or bad and being able to just see it for what it is. And, it's feedback, right? For him, he was talking about emotional states. And it was the fact that, emotions are not good or bad. They're just emotion, the energy in motion. They can be there to guide us and fuel us. And, there's no need to label them as being good or bad. And it's the same thing with getting real with where you are. I think once you actually get real with where you are and you're able to drop the judgment of it, because that's what keeps people living a life for the most part, the judgment of their reality and what that means to them as a good or bad thing, and then not wanting to feel like a failure and the whole story of it being bad and it being wrong, and then it fuels it, and it just gets into this whole cycle and fuels even more of whatever they're trying to avoid for the most part. So my advice, in getting optics on where you are so you can really use that to leverage where you're going, would be to just be mindful of any judgment or comparison or labels for the most part of good or bad that will prevent you from owning where you are. Because if you label something as good or bad or wrong, you're going to want to keep it away from you. It's difficult to accept it and own it and take the lessons whilst it's something that you're wanting to resist, right? What you resist persists. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, right? And mindful of where you want to go, but also, mindful where you are. So I did this exercise for myself not too long ago, and this is kind of out of the conversation we had. I looked in relationships, and my wife and I have an amazing relationship. Yet, we got an infant, 4-month-old, and we got a 3-year-old son, and we weren't going out. Right. So we got a babysitter. In fact, we got 3 babysitters, right? Just in case we have them on rotation, in case one can't be there, one can come at night, one can come during the day,
It's really going to be an assistant, isn't it?
Assistant.
One's going to be an assistant. You're going to call one in. It turns out we don't need you today, but can you go get the food shopping?
Yeah.
Can you go? You just clean that top over there.
Well, thanks to COVID, we just order online all our food and it comes delivered. So it's actually we got that handled, right? So I freed up that area. When I looked at it, I was like, okay, this isn't the way that I want it to be. We've kind of gotten lax since the baby, which is pretty typical. But I realized where I was, and it wasn't, I got honest and raw with where I was in my relationship with my wife, and it wasn't to the level that I wanted it to be. It wasn't to my standard. No story, no judgment. So we took action, right? Then I looked at my health, and as you know, Tim, was it 3 weeks ago? I took 10 days and went to Sedona, Arizona. I did some training on my brain. But before that, I was running almost every morning, lifting heavy weights. I was doing a 5x5 program, feeling great. I haven't gotten back into that since I've been back. And so I was like, all right, something needs to change. I got real and raw with where I am today, right? Not optimally in my health, for me anyway, right? Starting to gain some weight, starting to eat wrong. So I went on to a website we have here called Craigslist. I don't know if you have that in the UK. It's like an online marketplace. Every city pretty much in the States, has a directory, and you can post jobs, look at jobs, sell things, etc. And so what I did is I said, look, I want someone to show up to my house at 5:30 in the morning, not a minute late, because you know me and punctuality. And I just want you to show up, and I'm going to write my workout program. You just need to make sure I do it. If I do it 5 days in the week, I'm going to pay you $100. That's it. Simple. And I just said, I'm a father, and it's important to me that I have the health and stamina to live a long life so I can support my family and my kids. And I have the workouts. I know what to do. I don't need you to spot me. I don't need any. I just need you to show up to my door at 5:30 in the morning. I got a squat rack in my garage, and I can get to it. And you could check it off and things like that. So I've gotten about 10 people willing to do that, right? So I got that
How
checked
cool
off.
is that?
But
That's awesome.
I got that checked off the list, right? I don't need a personal trainer. I just did it for 30 days, right? I just want that for 30 days, get me back into my routine, and then either I can choose to continue or not, going through there. And so I started going through all the areas, business and everything else, and where I wanted to be. But it started with getting really raw with where I was, right? And not from a place of judgment at all. You want to be able to love yourself, guys. If you don't love yourself, you're with yourself all the time. It's time to make some radical changes. And you and I, Tim, are looking to grow personally, right? Together, but personally in general by hiring coaches. And you and I are always constantly, hiring the best coaches we can find to continue our journey. And that starts with knowing where you are, guys. And so in your relationships, are you dating your wife, right? Are you doing those things necessary? Is it starting to crumble? If it is, take massive action right away. Don't judge yourself. Just go, okay, it's not where I want it to be. What can I do right now in this moment of clarity to take action? But you got to have the clarity to do that. You got to have the clarity of where you are today in order to map out the route, to map out the next steps.
Mm. I'd say shame is the biggest number one obstacle to this for guys, for
Oh,
sure.
no doubt. Guilt
You
and
know,
shame.
100%. I think of guys that come to us and the marriage is completely on the rocks, right? And for the most part, for it to get to that point, some of the guys, not all, but most, quite honestly, have been ignoring it. They've been denying where they are. And they've been denying where they are because I think a couple of reasons. One, definitely they feel ashamed because they go into the office and they're the alpha in the office, they're the man in the office. People listen to them, people admire them, people respect them. Then they walk through the door and it's kind of the opposite, and they don't know what to do. And then it's this dual life that they then start to live and feel like an imposter, and it builds shame, quite frankly, which then pushes it further away. It's easier for them to deny the reality and hope that things are going to change than actually face the reality and do something about it. And I get it, right? It's easy to fall into that trap. I mean, the third agony of the five agonies is shame, right? So I really do get it. I don't blame any guy for being in that cycle. Although if you're in that cycle, listen to this right now, then if you choose to not get out of it, then yeah, it's totally on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just to reiterate, I think if you're able to just take that guard down and tell a different story, or just remove the judgment, like you were saying, it'll be huge. It'll be huge.
Yeah.
It'll open up a doorway.
Well, yeah. And I'm going to tell you guys what the danger is of doing this exercise here in a second. But first, I want to walk you through what I want you to do. Or I'm going to request that you do or challenge you to do, whatever you want to call it. Step one is set aside some time right now in your calendar where you can spend 30 minutes to an hour, get a cup of tea, coffee, whatever you want to do. And I encourage you to write it down on paper. It's the easiest way to do this. You can type it up if you need to, but paper just, that kinesthetic feel to writing it down. And again, I'll tell you in a little bit why this is dangerous. And then what I want you to do is get real clear in the 5 territories, right? So that's self, health, wealth, relationships, and business. Where are you in your life right now? Snapshot time, right? If I were to take a snapshot of where you are at this exact moment. Maybe you're hungover today, right? But you're not normally hungover. Well, that's where you are now in this snapshot moment. So I want you to record that. I want you to write that down because that's your reality in this moment. So whatever it may be, and go through it. And as Tim said, it's not a place to go from shame. This is a place that we want you guys to go just from reality. You almost want to remove yourself as a third person. And so one of the things I would recommend, don't say I, like I am hungover, right? Or whatever. I would say Doug is hungover, right? Or Doug has gained 5 pounds and Doug is not working. Doug's not running in the morning, right? So take that third person perspective. It's called Iliism, right? The third person perspective, and look at this as you write it down. Now, the next step, once you write it down, right? Look at it, look over that list without judgment, again, from the third person state. And what's the first thing you can do? The smallest thing you can do to take action in each area, right? And then once you've listed those small things, is there something you can do to take massive action to make a change, right? Massive action for you. For some of you, maybe it's getting a babysitter. For some of you, it's joining us at the Alpha Reset and going through the program, right? For others of you, it's doing something different. Everybody's going to be, it's individual. But the key here is taking massive action. Now, here's why this exercise is dangerous. This exercise is dangerous because now when you have clarity in optics, you know the truth. And once you know the truth, it's hard to go back. And that's why I'm going to guess, Tim, 80% of the people listening to this right now are going to think about doing it, but won't do it because fear and ego. Ego is going to say, oh, I don't want to look at that part of my life. Let's go into the next show, the next podcast, or let's do something else. But 20%, 2 out of 10 guys are going to step forward and go, screw it, I'm going to do this. They're either going to get mad at me for calling them out or something else, but then they're going to perform this exercise and get massive optics on their life, right? And they are the ones, those guys, the 2 out of 10, the 20%, those are the guys that are going to make the change. Those are the guys that are going to make radical shifts in their life. Those are the guys that are going to succeed. And the rest will go on to the next podcast and they'll forget about this. And they'll come back to it a year later and it'll be the same place or worse.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, highly recommend taking action. In the moment of insight, you always want to take action. This is your chance, right? Look danger in the eye, so to speak, right? And actually do this. So after this recording, grab your piece of paper and get real with yourself. Get real with the one person you will be with no matter what the rest of your time on this earth. There's nobody else that's guaranteed. Your wife, your kids, your friends. You're going to be with yourself, so you might as well get to know the person you are. And that starts with getting optics. That starts with getting there. And guys, if you find that one of the areas that you need to make some shifts in is relationships with your spouse, I encourage you to go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus. We have the Reignite cheat sheet that's up there right now. And that's all about reigniting your relationship, all about step-by-step processes you can use today. That will be up there as of the week that we're recording this, right? We change it out periodically. So I'd recommend getting it as soon as possible because we do change these out right away.
I love it. And guys, one thing that's coming to me, if you want to have bonus points, or even if you're struggling to get real with yourself, you can ask people around you, people close to you who really see you, maybe your wife, depending on what your marriage is like right now. Maybe ask her, what's it like to be in a relationship with me? Or a different way to phrase that is, how do you see me? How do you receive me? Whether it's friends, work colleagues. It reminds me, at the end of last year, end of 2019, I was reviewing my year and planning 2020. And in order to plan 2020, I obviously wanted to get real optics on where I was. It was all right coming from me, which could be a little bit biased. It's another thing coming from other people, right, in my life. So obviously I asked you, Doug. I asked Amelia, my mum, my dad, some other friends, some other associates, because I wanted to get a real holistic picture of how I was showing up in other people's lives. Some of it I didn't agree with. Some of it I felt was a little bit, obviously, because you're going to get, the caveat to this is it's going to be through their filter as well, right? And at the same time, you'll know what's true. It'll just feel true. And you'll know what is just way off and you'll disagree with it. But yeah, if you're feeling really brave, then ask those people around you. And in doing so, they may want to protect your feelings. They may want to tell you the nice things. So my advice to you would phrase it in a way whereby, look, in order for this to benefit me the most and for me to get the most out of this, I'd love for you to be really honest with me, really honest. There's no need to sugarcoat anything. That's not going to help me. I want you to be real with me, so I can be the best I can be, and then hold on, because you might receive some things that you definitely didn't expect or even see. It's always a great exercise. I always love it.
Absolutely. So enjoy, guys. Well, gentlemen, this is your time to take action. Be the 20%. Really take action and do it and do the exercise. We'd love to see it. All right, guys, that's it for us in this episode of The Powerful Man Show. We'll see you next time.